Getting started. All right. Cool. So you're probably wondering why I called you all here today. Sorry, I really wanted to start. So we are here, of course, for the monitor group fastboot experiment. So I just wanted to take like a minute. I think that I'm probably rehashing something, stuff that you all know already, which is how we got to this point. Sort of the history of this fastboot experiment. So shortly after I joined in late August, Dahlia brought this idea to me, which I believe came from Eric, and they wanted to, basically it's this first sentence, they wanted to run an experiment to accelerate the formation of a new team, and at the time we were, for all intents and purposes, a new team. I was new. I had a number of engineers joining, new front-end engineers that were joining, UX designers that had yet to join. And so we felt like the monitor team would be a good candidate for this. So after figuring out sort of what timeline would work, we ended up with December. I think there were pros and cons to doing earlier versus later. The main pro to it being later is that now we have much more of a full team, so it's pretty exciting. I'm glad we're able to do this. The goals for this this time right now, primarily it's this first one. It's all of these, but strengthen the cross-team relationships within the same within the functional group. Before this, many of us had not met at all in person, so it's an opportunity to get together and to work side by side and to hang out and get to know each other. And the hypothesis is that that'll help us as we're working remotely, since we've already sort of formed these relationships. The second one is related to that, reach sustained peak performance earlier for the group, same sort of thing. This is, I think, Eric's big idea for an experiment like this is that we want to get to the point where we all know how to work well together and have gelled and can operate. I can't think of a better word than peak performance, so I'll just say that again. And then, third is to ship a major feature, and that one is going to be, we're going to see what we get to. There's something we're going to work on. We'll work on the error reporting, and ideally, we'll have something to demo by the end of Thursday. I don't know what that'll be. It probably won't be merged to master, but it'll be something that is functional that we can then, build on next week and the week after, and hopefully we'll be able to get to a good point working together on that this week. And then the fourth one is to assess the impact and success of this experiment. Because this is the first time we're trying this, one of the things that we want to find out is, does this work? Is this a good idea? Is this a good use of resources, flying us all somewhere to be together? And would it be a good idea for teams in the future? So to that end, this is sort of a hard one to measure. I'm going to put together a survey that we can all fill out at the end of it, and that'll be part of how we assess this. In theory, we could assess this by seeing if our velocity is greater, after than before, but that seems like it's probably, there's a lot of variables there. So the agenda, I think everybody is also familiar with. This is the last thing I'll cover here. But so today we're just gonna dive in and work on error reporting, and that's, Josh is gonna talk about that next. And then tomorrow we have the excursion, we have lunch at the TV tower, and then we have an empathy mapping incident management workshop. So that'll be cool. It'll be time to, it'll be an opportunity to take a step back and to all get into a different mindset and start thinking about sort of a bigger problem from new perspectives. And then on Thursday, oh, I messed that up. On Thursday it should be error reporting. I'll change that. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Any questions, I guess, or no? All right, so I'll just flip this around since I gives up the presentation, so I'll just try and share real fast. I didn't want to prepare a whole bunch, but
Was I not sharing the whole time? I'm sorry. I was not sharing the whole time. That's okay.
That's fine.
What I was saying made
I can
sense.
see part of the slides.
Yeah.
all right, so cool. So if it's not coming through on Zoom, please let me know. Just second one, spin your laptop around. Cool. All right. Yeah. So thanks for the talk here and why we're all here gathering for lunch, which is super amazing. I also want to mention that having a rough count like 15, 14, I'm not sure what the actual head count is, but like 14 people here on the monitoring team is just incredibly exciting. I think just a couple months ago, we had maybe a fourth of these numbers. So this is just really, really awesome, and I can't wait for all the amazing work we're going to be putting out here in the future. Again, just thanks everyone for joining. This is for me, and I think for a lot of the GitLab, it's awesome to get this team really kind of kicked off and moving forward with a lot of great folks. So again, just looking really forward to that. As Steph mentioned, for the week, I think we kind of just talked about this so we can move forward and talk a little about why add monitoring to GitLab. Again, purposely left these really, really sort of high level, just to try and hopefully have conversation with the team and talk about more conversational than presentation wise. So hopefully this can just sort of spark conversation and more like a download you can do, frankly, remotely rather than in person. Anyway, just a couple little bits on why I think monitoring is a good addition to GitLab. Number one is that there's definitely a pattern for it's like shift left, and so you see that oftentimes with like security teams where you can embed security further up in the cycle. I was trying to put more of the other aspects of GitLab further ahead, right, as well as a trend towards DevOps, where a lot of teams definitely carrying pagers, or being more responsible for incidents going forward. GitLab isn't that way by itself right now. Like oftentimes we don't think people are engineers like on the spot that kind of resolve an outage or whatever if they had a code change. But hopefully we're going to try and get there with CD and things like that. So we'll be leaving more of that here at GitLab once we start turning that direction and having more people releases on monthly things. So for our own use as well as for our customers, again, teams are really starting to have embedded people, or at least being self-responsible for maintaining the stuff. So the team is building the code, I'm responsible for running the code, having some GitLab that are already working, already managing things, or at least a good workflow to kind of bridge the two areas, right? Between code and monitoring makes a lot of sense. And so I think if we combine those and have some awesome differentiated user experience and opportunities as well, right? We have both these two sides in the same place, right? So if you look at like some products like Sentry, for example, they're already building some source code awareness into their products a little bit and trying to sort of pull in more of that data. And the same thing goes like for GitLab as well, right? So you can also sort of pull in more of those information about how it's operationally running, how it's doing, and again, present that where it makes sense for the developer who's also operating or responsible for a particular type of service. And not just for operators as well, but also for anyone who is just trying to be aware of like how their code is performing and impacting code as well. Right? So even if you want the person who is responsible for keeping the site up and running, hopefully responsible for delivering bug-free, problem-free code that doesn't significantly degrade the front-end experience, doesn't introduce some delays to the back-end side, or other problems and things like that. And so if we're able to, again, surface some information, I did it before it's merged, even after it's merged, hopefully I can help to have a responsibility. In fact, that everyone feels like they're a part of the team here, not sort of pitching code over the fence, and then having others be responsible for sort of maintaining it and making it their problem. And so I think there's a lot of really awesome opportunities here. We talk about Eric incident management here there later in the day and tomorrow, which I think is really exciting for how you can have a differentiated experience with GitLab, where we have knowledge of releases, pulling in CI tests and merge requests, the code changes, and the code itself. And once you start adding in error tracking and other information in there, you can have a pretty nice system for trying to help accelerate time to resolution, to start kind of definite root cause, helping people understand what may have been happening in the system around the time of the incident. There's a lot of really interesting things we can do there, and so hopefully we can talk about that tomorrow and kind of come up with some good ideas as well. But yeah, so I think that's a little bit sort of why I think it's really exciting. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to contribute as well or any other ideas. If not, no big deal. But does that make sense? Awesome. So I think it's a really cool opportunity, frankly. We can pop into a little bit. So let's get a high level why we think it's a good idea to add on to GitLab, and how it can be different as well in the marketplace. But as far as 2019 goes, this is kind of the areas that we want to be working on in 2019. So that we call them categories. And so if you've seen that with the web pages and other content of GitLab, these are a little bit of work in progress as well, but they're on the product categories page. They're in category ethics. So you'll see these around a lot in GitLab. Again, of course, obviously, if GitLab anything is subject to change, and so sometimes they're renamed, even shifting features between them here and there. We'll work to add a little more detail as far as what goes in these as well in category ethics, make sure they're clear. But yeah, that's kind of our tackle here in 2019. So metrics would be kind of like your classic Prometheus-based metrics for us. Synthetic monitoring would be or like a synthetic user testing, when you can script Selenium or perhaps some other test to then perform some kind of automated user tests, right? So oftentimes with like metrics, you might be aware of like user generated error or perhaps other maybe issues with the system, so performance, things like that. But it'd be really nice to actually have something kind of actually exercising the workflows of your pages as a user would. And so rather than making sure a page can load, you can make sure, for example, that someone can actually add something to their cart, check it out, and then in theory pay for it in some way, right? And so that can be a much better test of the system rather than just like scraping pages and doing black box testing and things like that, or like again, a simple page script. So that's what that guy's about. Cluster monitoring, again, is we kind of have that NDC there already where you can see some information in the cluster, but this is going back to like Kubernetes management. So you can see, for example, if you have the right allocation of nodes for CPU memory for your workloads are running there, if your developers are requesting more memory or CPU can actually need or consume, and so this would go operational efficiency things we can do there, and also help give people heads up if their clusters heading for trouble, for example, if they're running out of memory, or pods, or drawings, potentially use. Tracing would be kind of the APM style tracing where you would get sort of a detailed view of the components of your architecture, how they connect together again, if you're using services, how they connect and how sort of frequently they talk to each other and that kind of map. But along with that also would be just the general tracing workflows as well. So like your kind of Git or Lightstep, sort of New Relic kind of workflows, just a little bit different perhaps than how that's gathered with the new sort of distributed tracing services. Those two like the classic systems. Logging, I think, is relatively self-explanatory. Error tracking, Accenture-like workflows we're working at here today, this week. Incident management is a new one. We're going to look at tomorrow and how we can help to, I think, make that a really awesome experience for people. And then status page kind of goes along with incident management, sort of as a sidecar, if you will, where if you know about incidents and you can then determine them, how they're running, how they're operating, and what's going on, you can hopefully also have a easy way to just simply post something publicly and say, yep, like we're aware of something, here's maybe the issue we're working on, or here is maybe it's all transparent you are, right? And GitLab style, like here's a link to the issue, the incident where we're actually working this in real time, or something like that, right? Where we can get a more less transparent company, like a little blurb about like, here's what's going on. Like we're investigating, we're seeing increased error rates, or isolated to whatever, and that type of thing. So I think they go really well together. When they communicate incidents to the public, maybe even internally to other stakeholders, and with incident management being sort of like the brains of the operation. So that's a little bit of categories that we're kind of looking at here for 2019. It's a lot, right? So we have a lot larger team, but also a huge scope area here as well, which sort of trends a little bit into like some of the goals that we have. So you can't say like today as a 1.6, we have some minimal support for a couple of these areas. By the way, if there's any questions or any thoughts or concerns, yeah, sorry.
I have a question. What about alerts?
Yeah, so alerts kind of, I think, get folded up into the categories. Like, so I think I kind of mentally block them into incident management a little bit because you kind of manage like channels and how you're moving people. And like, I think also if you create an incident off of an alert, it'd be super awesome to like package like where like the incidents, like a link to the incident in the alert itself. So like, hey, we've seen 3 alerts firing across Sentry and Prometheus. And here is the incident that we've created, and so you can see click on this to learn more or like start triaging. But again, I think we can talk about those real quick. That's like mentally where I sort of put it, as opposed to its own like standalone like category. But again, the categories are subject to change, like anything I get right. So,
and I think, and that level of detail, right? Like where, like the fact that alerting is something and where that's going to go. That's sort of the detail that I think we want to flesh out in these categories, because there's a lot of these are I think encompass more things that at the moment just sort of implied.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, I look at those categories and like you could easily like spend a year on just one of those categories.
Yeah,
but
correct.
I know the other piece of that too is we like getting used to GitLab and MVC, like cool.
Yeah.
Features, great.
Yeah. So for I guess that's a good point. Right? So a lot of GitLab, a lot of folks are new to GitLab. So but generally how we think about things is and really how we kind of spent a lot of 2018 was just doing some MVC slices across a lot of these categories. And that can help to sort of like plant a flag as far as like, this is what we want to try and accomplish. This is kind of where we're going and what we think the vision of this team will be. And I'm trying to lay some like groundwork as well, rather than sort of like just doing metrics and then not really shipping anything in other areas. And then people might think like, oh, okay, so you're doing metrics. It's like, no, we're actually going to do a whole lot more and kind of get that scope baseline kind of at least like fleshed out a little bit. And then you can start going deeper into something. So it's been 2018 kind of do a lot of like the minimal MVCs you see here. And then I think 2019, because I probably what I'm trying to achieve here. Yeah, by end of year, we had a very aggressive plan, right? So basically, Seth and the company has been challenged to really essentially, there's an activity going on right now actually around like headcount. Like how many people do we need to accomplish our vision? And so essentially the thought experiment was, well, let's see what we need to hit end of year with a competitive solution in all these areas. How many people are required, right? And so we tried to put together like a hiring plan that would potentially achieve that, right? And so that's why you see like an asterisk there and like a full-time hiring plan. So as far as the request has been out there, and we'll see sort of how far we get as far as headcount. But that's sort of the thought experiment is like, okay, well, how many people would you need to sort of be competitive here? How many people can we get? And then let's kind of after that will be, let's figure out then what we, based on what we have and what we're able to sort of get headcount wise, we can adjust the end of year plan accordingly, right? So I think it was like 23, 25 engineers, something like that. We expect that. That doesn't include UX or even PM or.
Yeah, I think the total headcount for everybody was like, like 40 something.
So anyway, so that's
whether we could even hire that many people like in that amount of time, I don't know.
But anyway, so that's sort of what you'll see. So you might see some things along those lines, like on the pages and things like that. But that's the context behind them, and sort of the thought experiment. I think that went into GitLab. Obviously, we had a lot of funding recently, so sort of like, well, let's see how we can put it best to use and be aggressive here. Because we are a missions company. So anyways, that's a little bit behind sort of the thought processes and going back to the MVC style of things. Again, like every month we usually move ball forward. So the idea is you ship something that you can ship in a month and you put it out there for folks to use and try and get feedback on it. And then you just keep on iterating. And so and that just happens across the whole organization. So you'll hear folks talking to customers and prospects where they kind of see these 9 stages, right? And they're like, oh wow, I can see this slide, like we can replace all these things. And you kind of have a conversation where it's like, okay, well, there's a different maturity model across all of these. And so there's actually a page in GitLab which just lays out what we think maturities are. Like, well, right now, for us, like this is pretty minimal, and so we're just transparent about it. And then if you look at like the CI or the SCM workflows, you see a lot more around complete and like lovable, because those have been around for 5, 6 years. And so, I'm just talking to customers, it's like, well, we've entered these new areas more recently. If you look at like the SCM and the verify stages in particular, you will love them, and they're awesome. And as you kind of get further away from left to the right-hand side, we've been at them less time, and so they're not as mature. But if you look at what we're shipping every release, like we're just every month getting better and better and better. And give us 6 months, give us a year, and you'll see a lot of improvement. And the rate of velocity in GitLab is super high. And so that's tends to be the conversation you have with customers in this areas. And you kind of look at the release posts, you can go like .github.com/releases. And if you just look at yourself at like all the stuff that we've shipped, kind of in that view, it's just super impressive. If you were to take a look at it, you can take a look at it right now if you want to. But like, if I look at GitLab from even like an older version from like 6 months ago, if you ever kind of install an older version, it's kind of shocking to see like what it looks like. Or if you see screenshots of a customer when they like open an issue, you're like, oh geez, like, that looks really old. Like, all these features aren't there, and it's only like 3 or 4 months old. You just like kind of like live in this bubble world, like we're just always on GitLab.com and looking into the latest features. Like here's 11.5, right? I mean, it's can't even fit on a single page. And then if you keep on just scrolling, 11.4, 11.3, and so like you show this to customers, and it's just really impressive. So I think that story works really well. And again, you just mentioned that we've been monitoring for a short period of time, and we're working on it. And just look at what we're shipping and look at their area. The trend line for the overall product is just really impressive. I think with the overall company, it's kind of like everyone thinks is our main differentiator, our main like superpower. It's just the velocity of how we ship. So that is not going to change. So then I guess it was, again, please not into the questions to keep this conversational. But if we jump to like the Summit 22.12.1, this is, again, super work in progress, and you can define this week or really anytime, however you want to. But this is sort of what I was trying to think for as far as, typically like in GitLab, you have these summits every 9 months. You're trying to align towards like a goal, what you want to try and ship at the summit as like a big marker, like sort of what you did the last 9 months. And it's a good place to try and again present to the company and show across the whole company. It's a natural point of sort of like having an interesting story to tell at a certain point in time. And so this has evolved again in the last week or 2 weeks, and so it'll continue to evolve. But this is sort of what I was thinking. Again, some conversation around whether it makes sense how to allocate our next couple releases. But sort of button up so that in the dashboards we have for metrics, and so Audrey will look at e-charts to get that kind of nailed down. And we've also made some changes recently to enable like a better workflow for the GitLab experience for ourselves internally. Or since we aren't actually deploying GitLab using GitLab, or well, GitLab CI at least, and so it's kind of unhooked. And so we're not really using a lot of our features in that sense of things in the release orchestration side. We sort of unhooked a bit of the metrics from that side of things. And so now that we, I think, just had our first RC go live today, maybe even hopefully we can get a dashboard up in GitLab. We can get like a triage dashboard hooked up. And I think the idea here is trying to kind of iterate over time to have a good one based on e-charts for the summit. And I think just a single dashboard for the triage, not trying to like the whole multiple dashboards and reorganization of that. Right, but have a good one that folks like and use from the product for sort of a single page view of how GitLab.com is. Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? What's so I think that's the first one. And then kind of dovetail into that a little bit also is to try and help to list, view, and embed errors and metrics and issues and incidents. So this goes back to sort of like the single product advantages we have. So it'd be really interesting if you could take like a problematic event, grab like the time series and just chuck it into the issue or a merge request and be like, this is what we saw, this is what's going on, and you can simply like actually have a live chart you can mouse over, you can actually zoom out or drag around within the issue, as opposed to like we do now, where we might take a screenshot of like a Grafana and just like paste that in there, but you can't actually look at what that peak is or what time slot that was, and so we actually have a live chart embedded in issues, which would be super awesome. I think also the same token, trying to do the same thing with errors as well. And this way, like the Sentry error, when you attach to an issue, right now you get like, you will see it today, or another kind of working on issues. So like Sentry just basically will just put like a block of text of like the stack trace snippet. And then a link to like the Sentry thing. That's helpful, but there's not a lot of information in there. Like what was some of the tags, what was some other information that can help you solve this? Or even like, since we have the code base, we have a stack trace, like what's the version number, what's the commit shot? Have all this information. Okay, have a nice easy to link into it, pull it in. What was the merge request that changed most recently, and things like that. So we have a really interesting view for errors, I think. I think that again kind of builds into incident management, where we have an incident and now link in like the relevant, time series information right there, and relevant errors right there in the incident. So I think that'll sort of lay some groundwork for having a pretty awesome incident management workflow, but also just being super usable. I think kind of incident management would be the one. Hopefully we can try and cap off on that one, and see if we can try to use it internally. If you've seen our internal incident management process, if you join the Slack channel like hashtag incident management, you'll see some of that going on there at GitLab, as well as like the production channel. And Ben can give you more tips and tricks as far as where we find and do this work. But oftentimes it's a lot of like, seems like just conversation in Slack, a Google Doc that kind of gets collaborated on for a while, and then a Zoom call. And we kind of just don't have like a lot of a unifying place to go work on this stuff. And so I think if we can be awesome, we can actually build something to use internally, so they control customers, committed customers, and like sort of early users to get a better workflow. Because I don't think the bar is super high right now, frankly, either. And so I think we could have a pretty interesting thing about hopefully control customers sort of build upon here. With some of this work. So anyways, that's what I was thinking for the 12.1, and we can sort of figure out if that's reasonable and or achievable. But again, we have such an iteration, but I think that would be interesting to start. I think also for like prospects and customers, I think they've seen part about incident management is that even if it's an MVC, it doesn't have all the automation that you can't create a Zoom call, can't like auto run for your coordinate and see it attached to the issue and things like that, which would be awesome. It also helps paint like a really interesting vision around like why monitoring would be so awesome and pull this in, and like why incident management helps pull things from like what's going on in releases, what's going on in issues and errors, and what would emerge really certainly. So I think it helps provide that single product kind of like stickiness and value, and so they'll kind of feel like I can see where this is going to get really, really interesting. I can see how this will improve our time resolution and things like that. So I think that's where also it'll help have conversation with customers to drive and have a really interesting, I think, hopefully feedback around what they want to see. So
I think. Sorry, I was thinking it's more about what makes incident management interesting. I think that at least in my experience, like most companies just come up with their own thing, like build their own internal tool to deal with this, because it's not. I don't know. I don't feel like it's not something that people usually like have a whole other product that they're using for incident management. But if it can be part of like the GitLab suite, where it's like, hey, if you haven't already built an internal tool, or if you do have an internal tool that you want to stop using, like here's this thing that is already coming with everything else that you're getting. So I think that could be really, really valuable. It's like I don't know. I feel like incident management itself is like a weird little piece of the pie. It doesn't always make sense on its own.
Yeah, and a bunch of the people that work on the Prometheus modeling side have actually built incident management systems before. So we may have like a guest visitor over video to talk about incident management. This person built the incident management tool that Google uses internally, and we've been discussing like should the Prometheus project build an incident management tool, but we're not UI, we're not front end, we're just a data stores team.
Mhm.
So this is, I think, a good opportunity for GitLab to fill a niche in the Prometheus ecosystem.
Mhm.
Cool. Thanks.
Josh, I have a question.
Yeah.
You had that sort of date and then found the actual categories. Categories.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
We had 8 categories, and I'm just kind of curious as to your thoughts about how they, it's like, it seems like errors are going to be part of the incident and maybe it's just how in your head, how they're
Can you go back to them?
managed.
Yeah, sure. So I think I thought maybe having like a flow chart or some of the stuff would be interesting, but I think generally that you have your sources of data, right? Like you have your metrics, you have your errors, you have your logging, you have your tracing, and all those can generate errors. It can generate alerts typically as well, and it's really kind of sort of instrumentation in how your application is doing. So it's kind of like those 4 pillars, if you will, of like observability that we can help to basically have as sources of input as far as like what's going on out there with your application. Cluster monitoring will also be in as well, as far as like how your cluster is doing as a whole. And then from there, I think you then have the tools to, and then you have things like synthetic modeling as well, which can help you again tell you something that's wrong. It's another like input source of like, okay, so I have a fake user, but exercising their workflows, and those things are not breaking. Like that's like we knew, like that's actually a really high quality like sort of source of like something is wrong. Like if your Selenium test together, for example, that exercise pages is now failing, like something's probably broken. If you aren't seeing a lot of errors right now, like in the metric side, you probably will be seeing errors soon. You'll probably also be getting customer support calls because something's broken, like I can't check out anymore. Like so that tends to be like a really high quality like source of it. Again, like feedback. And it's like, for example, think about like, this is actually I think just back out. That's a little example of like comparing like how severe like different incidents are. So we can just back out of that. But then you have like incident management and some of the workflows that kind of sit on top of those. Right? So then you have incident management hopefully try to give you a summarized view of like, okay, so you had an error or an alert pop up from metrics, and then a minute later you had a synthetic alert coming in from synthetics monitoring. You actually get some exceptions coming through, and you can try and figure out like, okay, so we had probably some event a couple minutes ago. Let's try to then sort of maybe stamp out some duplicate alerts. Maybe you can then try to centralize them and give you more of like, okay, so this is what we're seeing new in this like time period. We also happen to do a deploy in this time period recently as well. There is a merge request or commit list that got in that deploy. Here's the error in the stack trace. Is that related to, for example, something that was also just shipping a commit? If it was, maybe that's sort of the problem. And so you can actually then have like something I think that kind of sits on top to really provide you like a nice framework for understanding what's happening. That's how I see it. You get like, so trying to get data into GitLab, and then you have a service that then try to help you understand it, and hopefully rapidly arrive at a conclusion as like what happened, and then also then communicate it to internally to customers, having a good workflow for like running the incident, and then making sure you can communicate back to customers on the status page, whether it's internal or external customers.
And I think also like separately outside of incident management, there's like the dashboards for where we would show the metrics and probably show the tracing, where people who are interested in the operational health of the site or of the services that you're running can go and get a sense of how things are going and whether there are potential problems in the future or whether suddenly the response time is much higher than it had been. That's more of like I guess it's less acute, a less acute type of situation.
Yeah, like the troubleshooting workflows definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Are we planning on doing I can't think of the name of it, but like scheduling? I mean, it's like related to alerts and like related to incident management and like just the people side of scheduling. Like almost who's on duty.
Of the on-call stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think eventually we could get there. I was trying to, as far as like the MV synthetic things, just like having an alert channel for like video duty and just like tying into those.
And that's pretty typical of most of the other tools that are out there.
Yes, like for example, Prometheus can like set off PagerDuty, so within like Sentry and things like that. So I think, and I think it goes like also the MVC strategy, like so how do we kind of iterate our way there? And so like if like GitLab uses PagerDuty, for example, but it's mostly just for on-call. We don't like run incidents out of PagerDuty. And so we can do the same thing. We can tie into that. A lot of companies I think also have a similar model. And then yeah, so then like, over time we can just sort of get there.
Yeah, no, definitely makes sense. Yeah, I was just curious if we were thinking about that sooner or later or at all. Because it feels like it ties in. I mean, you could see, yeah, who's on call, like who got paged during this. I think that's part of like goes into an incident. Like,
yeah, and that could definitely be like stuff that we pull from PagerDuty.
Yeah.
Into an incident. And that also brings up another thing that is another sort of related to alerts. It's like an implied part of this, which is having some centralized way to have these communication channels configured within GitLab. Because we're not the only team who's going to want to be pushing things to Slack. Obviously, we're not already. So we want to make sure that there's like a centralized place for integrating to Slack and for integrating to PagerDuty, and sending email alerts and whatever other channels make sense. So that's one of those things that as we work towards even just like the internal goal of getting to the point where we can use GitLab to monitor GitLab.com. That's a missing piece. That's something that we'll need to make sure is in place.
Centralized communication channels.
Yeah, as a issue, centralized learning framework, which is sort of like, intended to be sort of like that under the hood. Like the UI of like highly notified for these types of things, and then how do we then kind of coordinate that as like a centralized framework that can be reused by multiple services. Awesome. Any other questions on this? Not anything like this. So this summit of that one swim lane was just representative of like what would happen like for there, and so I think we're just kind of playing more minimal stuff on that, complete incident management and things like that. But I think it helps to again paint the vision and hopefully for ourselves and customers, and that's an interesting discussion. Again, really kind of drive home some of like why it's super interesting to have and within like your dev tools product. I think that was so that's a bit of like 2019. Any other questions on 2019? We can iterate and discuss further for sure. But if not, we can talk a little about error tracking. So like what we're trying to do next couple days here. And so I think we kind of aligned on not trying to build our own thing. Sentry is an open source product. It's a good product. It's pretty heavily utilized. And there's a lot there. And so similar to what was like the Prometheus and similar to the tracing solutions, I don't think you kind of need to try and reinvent the wheel here. There's some great tools you can try and tie and utilize. And so I think kind of for the first MVC here, it just lets you have a decent way to try and view what errors are occurring and that list view. And then hopefully also then be able to sort of pop it open and get some key details, and then obviously you to get the full information, just pop into Sentry and everyone's available to continue to use them. And the idea there would be once you kind of have the workflows to view, we can then hopefully use that to sort of also drive like the embedding view and continue to sort of work towards that. And then hopefully we can also receive alerts from Sentry. So similar to how we get alerts from Prometheus, right? Like we're not going to have, since we're not getting all the error data ourselves, we're going to rely on Sentry to sort of like manage how processes later day and just add us as like a webhook type alert process that we do. So that way we can start to get some alerts like, hey, something's happening with errors. Because we're not going to ideally like pull it every 2 seconds and try and like keep a copy of the data stored ourselves. So that would be there. And again, I think this is probably more than we can achieve even the first month. I would hope if we can just get like the configuration and like the list view would be cool. And then also we can just get like that sort of MVC of like the error detail be even better. For like, I think maybe the first month, we can see how far we get.
And I think a key component also of this first iteration is that like we're just assuming that the person who's using this already has a Sentry instance set up, And so all we need to be able to do is for them to be able to you know, add in like the how to get to that Sentry instance and what like the auth token is, so we can integrate with the API. In the future, maybe we'll provide a more of like a way where you can, if you don't have a Sentry instance set up, like here you go. That's not yet.
Yeah, we did a Prometheus, which actually super nice. Like you can just put a button and Prometheus gets deployed, and then once you deploy Prometheus, we can also then manage the config, and we can also then like set alerts and things like that. We didn't actually think GitLab, but I think for Sentry for the NBC, let's just like tie in what we have already. Oftentimes they probably have something there already, and so we can just look into it and leverage that existing installation as well as all the configuration options. Like one challenge with Prometheus is you can deploy it. But then someone's like, well, I want to tweak this one setting. And it's like, okay, well, we don't have that setting exposed as an option you can tweak. And then it's sort of like, that can be a long tail of sort of like work and effort to make it something that someone can like use at scale. Because like, obviously with like GitLab size, for example, Ben could spend months sort of refining our like Prometheus and some trickster deployments of Prometheus. And yeah, there's no way we really build it sort of that level of complexity within GitLab anytime soon as far as how to actually manage this. But again, not many people probably put like their Grafana dashboards in like a tweet and send it out during an event. So we're a bit different. And then eventually, obviously we're trying to do like some that additional logic of time and errors we release, MR, and all and things like that to try and help to tie the two worlds together. So that's a little bit of error tracking. That's kind of all I had. And any further, I guess we can you can still talk. So any questions, thoughts? Otherwise, we can just dive into error tracking in more detail. I just sort of end of what I had.
So I think, I think that the next step is to like collectively figure out how we want to tackle this over the next couple of days. We have enough people that we can be doing multiple things in parallel. And so if we look at like we start to figure out what things we need to do to get to some basic MVC, this iteration, then we can start to figure out how to break that down. So should I keep this going?
You can probably end this with there's one video.
Yeah. All right.
I'll be